Good evening. Welcome to another day in the life of TLE. I hadn't actually planned on doing a video today, but because of the experience that I just had on this evening, I feel compelled to talk about it, and this is kind of my way of releasing it so that I could get it off me and be able to rest tonight. Because sometimes when I have things on my mind, it affects my ability to be at peace and or sleep. So yeah, I want to talk about what just happened. So I'll back it up a little bit and say that a couple of weeks ago I had emailed my doctor regarding a timeline and plans for a stem cell transplant that I had been waiting on since last August. And I mentioned in a couple of videos that according to the doctor, my lungs were damaged by the ABVD chemo that I had back in January of 2014. I had that particular drug for about 5 months before I was told that the cancer had reoccurred, and I stopped taking it and started ICE in July of 2014. But I wasn't told about the damaged lungs until September of 2014, while I was anticipating the stem cell transplant after harvesting my stem cells back in August. And so so far I've been noticing some really interesting events as it relates to the collecting of the stem cells, and then the weight, and then finding out that they were not going to actually do this transplant in September. And so from September until January, I was pretty much kind of what I feel like was misled to believe that it would happen any day thereafter. But no, I take that back. So in September, late September, I was told that I had pneumonia, and so that was the holdup. And so yeah, that's when I actually found out about the poisoned lungs, and so this is all new to me. But the organized pneumonia is what they called it, and I was told that I couldn't do the transplant until it cleared up, and that I would have to go on a high dosage of steroids. And I did that for about a month or so, and was told that it did clear up, and that, I was told by the pulmonologist that he would recommend the transplant. And so from September until December, actually until January, the nurse practitioner pretty much, in my opinion, misled me, or led me to believe that we would be able to schedule a transplant. And week by week, I would wait or anticipate a call, and nothing was happening. And so a couple of times I inquired and wondered, why haven't I heard anything from the stem cell coordinator if I'm going to get a stem cell transplant? And so in December, after just being completely fed up with it, because at that point I had exhausted my insurance and my leave of absence, because I wasn't planning on being gone from work as long. And I understand things happen, and some things are not foreseeable. I understand this is medicine, they're practicing, I get all that. But my life and business and practicality still plays a part in this routine as well. And so after some frustration and me acknowledging that I was frustrated and wanting to know the truth, which is what should I realistically think as it relates to the time frame or the timeline for this transplant that I've been quote unquote getting for months. And so it was then that the nurse practitioner told me that we'll shoot for January 9th of 2015. And on that day, she called me and said that that the pneumonia had came back and that they wanted me to go back to the high dosage of steroids that I had originally taken in September, because at that point I had winged down off of I wasn't completely off, but I was on a much lower dosage of steroids, probably at about 25 to 30 milligrams. So at that point I was just like, really? What happened? And I was told that they felt like I had weaned off the prednisone too fast, and that's why the pneumonia came back. And I was like, so what happens if, I get back on this high dosage of steroids and the exact same thing happened, what do I do then? And why am I doing the same thing? And why am I taking the same medication? Not to mention that during that time I had gained 40 pounds. And I mentioned the other day how during treatment altogether I've gained 100 pounds, close to 100 pounds. And so that was a short amount of time to gain so much weight, and to just have an overall reaction to all of the treatment that I had for the year, and all the surgeries, and just setbacks in life, and everything that I had experienced in 2014. My body was talking to me, and I felt like I should listen. So the other thing that happened in January, the nurse practitioner told me that they would put me on steroids for 4 weeks, and then 4 weeks we would do scans and go into transplant. And so because I had some experience with being told things and they hadn't happened, and this had been going on since August of 2014, I just couldn't do it to myself to get my hopes up high and expect a transplant at that point, because it still wasn't adding up to me, and I still to this day haven't heard from the coordinator. So yeah. And what I decided to do was email the doctor, because I noticed the trend is each person has a different timeline and or interpretation about what's going on as it relates to my care. And so that has been probably one of the most frustrating things that I've experienced during this time. And so as a result of that, I reached out to the doctor and I said, okay, this is what the pulmonologist said. This is what the nurse practitioner is saying. Now, what do you say? And so we were supposed to have a meeting to all be on the same page, but for some strange reason, while I was waiting for this meeting to happen, in the exam room, the doctor appeared and the nurse practitioner never showed up, and changed the whole story. All the plans changed, and it went from me getting the scans in 4 weeks to now having to wait another couple of months before I do anything. And so that pushed me to March, which is when I saw the pulmonologist again, which is a couple of weeks ago. And when I saw him, he told me that my lungs had cleared up. Same thing he told me in September. The pneumonia was gone, and that he would recommend the transplant. But I could tell that something was different. And so when I met him, I felt like he approached the situation from a totally different place. He was a little more open and what I feel like less misleading. And I noticed that demeanor had changed a bit. And there seemed to be a disconnect, and I wasn't sure what or why. And so I tried to understand and push and kind of pry to, not necessarily pry because it is my life and, my care, but I wanted to understand why his demeanor had changed and why he wasn't giving me straight answers. And I won't even really go into that because I can't figure that out. But what I will say is that a couple of weeks ago, I'd email my doctor and I was just like, look, this has been a long ride. I've been through hell and back again. I've lost a lot, including my stability, my income, my place, my housing. Like, in addition to the illness, life is, really happening. And I really need to get back to, if possible, and I'm never going to get back to where I was, but a place of normalcy, because financially I can't afford to just twiddle my thumbs and guess at what's going to happen with my care and my life. And I want to know how to go ahead and plan life. And should I look for a job or go back to my job, or should I? It's just, I have nowhere to go because I don't know if they're going to say in a couple of weeks or a month or 2 months or 10 months, and no one will even get close to committing to anything as it relates to a time or what they actually see or what they actually feel as it relates to timing for scheduling a transplant. So I emailed her and I just broke all this down. I was like, it's really hard. I can't plan anything. I haven't been able to plan anything for the last 8 months. If I wanted to go somewhere, if I want, it's just like I'm sitting in limbo. What should I do? I could be taking classes. If I go to school and then I'm in the middle of a semester, then I have to stop school to get a transplant, or go back to work and kind of play the guessing game. They may call me in this week or whatever, and I wanted to make that clear to her that I really needed for her to give me some clear, concise information so that I could go ahead and know how at least the next couple of months of my life would look, or what to expect. And so she didn't really respond to the questions, and that's very typical too. I'm noticing that she avoids a lot of things, and it probably goes with the territory because, I'll just say it goes with the territory. But she had been telling me that she was waiting to hear back from a colleague too. And so my experience has always been a reason or someone that she was waiting on, or, and so I find myself waiting weeks or maybe even a month. And then I reach out to her like, hey, did you hear from that person? Because you told me you were going to talk to this person. You told me you're going to talk to the pulmonologist. You're going to talk to your colleagues. You're going to talk to people on the East Coast. What's going on? What did you hear? Or like, what should I do? This is a whole person here, and this is my life. Like, come on, check in. And so that wasn't happening. And so I sent her another email after the first initial email, just adding a little bit more to it and saying, it seems that, you're not wanting to commit to scheduling a transplant. And I expressed to her that the pulmonologist, because she had originally always referred to his recommendations as to what I should anticipate or expect as it relates to getting the transplant. And so I said to her, you always say that you're waiting on the pulmonologist and he's going to make a decision or whatever it is that you're saying. But when I talk to him, he always says that it's your call and that he would make the recommendation. Now, the pulmonologist, I feel like, has always been honest with me as it relates to saying that there are risks, or there could be risk, but it could actually go okay. And the risk that he mentioned was, it could affect my lungs. The drugs that they use for the stem cell transplant, I was told that 2 of the drugs that they use automatically reduces the lung function. And so the doctor had told me that she didn't want anything to further damage my lungs, and I respect that. But the pulmonologist has said and continuously says that there are no guarantees. Like, while he didn't anticipate anything happen, something could happen. So it's just one of those things where you kind of just have to hope for the best. And so anyway, I wanted to know. I did a pulmonary function test and was told that the results were just about the same. And yeah, so I don't know. I just feel like I'm very confused right now. And to add to that, I went to the pulmonologist today because that appointment happened because of the email and me inquiring about timeline. So what happened was my doctor contacted the pulmonologist and told him to put me on another drug for inflammation. And when I asked about the transplant, his response was, I don't schedule transplants. And so I'm like, well, why am I taking this drug when you told me a couple of weeks ago my lungs are cleared up? And he was like, well, the drug is for inflammation, and it's an antibiotic, and it could prevent inflammation in the future too. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is another Band-Aid until when? Like, when exactly are we talking about? Like, how long do you want me to be on this drug? And what should I anticipate as far as scheduling a transplant? And so, again, his response was, I don't schedule transplants. I don't know. He was just really disconnected. And I understand that, he may be limited, but there's something really strange about the experience at large. And so, in addition to that, which sparked all of the energy that I had or have, I waited in his office. I waited in the clinic for 3 hours in a cold room, and he never showed up. And so I had anticipated something happening, because typically when I went to his office, save the last couple of times, I'm usually not there over an hour and that's what everything with seeing the, checking in and talking to whomever I need to talk to and getting my temperature and stuff taken. So the last time I think I was in there a nice amount of time, which was very uncommon for me. And so yeah, once I had all of my vitals and things checked, the woman told me that she was going to go and get the doctor. About an hour, 20 minutes later, a guy came in, and I talked to him, and then he left and he said he was going to get the doctor. And about 30 minutes later, he came back and he asked me about my pharmacist. Where do I go to see a pharmacist? And I said, I told him where, and I was like, are you planning on sending the medication somewhere? And long story short, I waited in the clinic for 3 hours in a cold room for the pulmonologist, and he never showed up. And I decided to go to the front desk because in my mind I was thinking, I think this clinic closes at 5 o'clock, and it is very close to 6 o'clock right now. And When I came in, the clinic was primarily empty, and I'm not saying that it couldn't have filled up during the 3-hour wait, but when I came out, no one was there. It was pretty much dark. Most of even the people that worked at the desk were gone. There was like one guy still there, and you could tell that they were wrapping up. And so when I approached him, I said, "What time does the clinic close?" And he said, 5 o'clock. And I said, I've been sitting in the back for about 3 hours now, and it's cold, and I've been waiting on the doctor. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I think it's time for me to leave." And he said, "Wait, let me go and get the doctor." And so immediately, the doctor peeped his head around the corner, and he had this really smug look on his face, and come back here for 2 minutes. And I said, "It's really cold back there. What is it that you want to tell me?" Because at that point I was just like so disappointed and insulted, because I knew that he had me waiting, and it wasn't an urgency to him to talk to me. And I can understand you not really wanting to deal with the situation because it's a tough situation, but to have me wait, I just feel like that was really insensitive and unprofessional. And so I've had quite a few unprofessional moments during this experience, and I will talk about those going forward. But so today I just decided that I would no longer pretend that this is okay, because this whole honoring yourself and being aggressive and saying what you need to say, I was put to my own test. And so I am making some decisions as a result of today's experience and just my experiences at large with my team of people that are supposed to be caring for me. And I will talk more about those in the future, because this is getting long and I don't like that it takes so long to upload the video. So I'm going to end it here, but to be continued. Thank you.